All right, hello. We're going to do Genoise, which is a sponge cake. There's a few steps we're going to do ahead of baking. So I've got an 8-inch cake pan here that I've filled with butter, rubbed continues out the inside with butter. I'm going to put a little bit of flour in, and then I shake it around to get the flour all over the inside of the pan. Flouring and buttering is a very old technique, but it's absolutely the best way to make sure something won't stick in a pan. So our pan has been floured and buttered ahead of time. Our oven needs to be turned on. Bake. I'm going to go 375 because it's not a convection oven, it's just a standard oven, so it'll take a little while to heat up. And it'll take a little longer to cook. Now, sponge cake takes quite a long time to mix. It's a whole egg mixture, so I have 250 grams of whole egg here. That's in my mixer. Turned out to be 5 eggs. Large eggs, as a rule, are usually 50 to 55 grams. So that's 5 eggs is 250 grams. Turned out to be perfect. So I've got the 180 grams of sugar here. That's going to go in there as well. The other ingredients we have, I've got some lemon juice, and I've got some salt, so those things can go in. The latter two ingredients are the flour and the melted butter. So as you'll see in some of the documents we're going to put up, Genoise is usually a sponge cake. It uses whole eggs and the foaming method, and then has flour folded in, and in some cases butter. In modern times, Genoise, at least to me, always has butter in it. So you've got sponge cake, wouldn't have butter in it, and then Genoise would have butter in it. That's the way I was taught, that's the way I learned, so that's what I teach. It certainly looks like in the past, that word Genoise was used for sponge cake, and it didn't matter whether there was butter in it or not. So we're going to mix this up. It'll probably take about 10 minutes or longer, and then we'll fold in the flour and then the butter. Okay, that's been mixing for quite a long time. Ribbon stage, you want to be able to put your initial, and you want it to not sink in. That's just not quite ready yet. It's going to mix for another few minutes. It's been mixing for probably 8 to 10 minutes already. So we're going to mix that a little bit longer. Okay. The sound of this mixer eventually gets to me. Oh, that's much better. So that's sitting on top nicely. So we'll whisk in the flour and the butter in just a minute. All right, so I just pushed the mixer back. We have our lovely foam, which is made of the egg whites, whole eggs and sugar. And now we're going to sift the flour in. You can actually sift a fair amount of it. Fold a little bit, sift, fold, fold, and just note that we're being very gentle here, that all I'm doing is trying to nicely combine the flour with that egg foam. So there's no leavening here. The only lightening or leavening we're getting is from the eggs and the sugar. There's no baking soda or baking powder to generate any kind of carbon dioxide. Now this is our melted butter. It's been sitting here so it's cool. We pour it in so it goes down the side of the bowl, and then we fold it together. We just fold that butter in. Again, just very, very you got some lemon juice in there, so it's going to taste nice. And we're also going to be making some simple syrup with some fruit flavor, maybe raspberry or strawberry. Yum. To brush the cake with, once it's been baked and cooled. Because we're going to ice this cake and we're going to decorate it. Okay? So I'm just going to spread that around a little bit. Perfect. Okay, that's going to go in the oven. This is one of those cakes we have to be careful with jostling and banging around or whatever. I live on the ground floor of my building, so it's cement floor. I don't have to worry about it too much. But opening and closing the oven door could disrupt it, so we're going to leave that in there for a good 15 or 20 minutes before I check it. It'll probably take about half an hour for the cake to be completely baked. And we'll probably start the buttercream. Okay, see you in a minute. So the sponge cake has come out of the oven. I just inverted it onto this rack, and the pan lifted right off. Sorry I didn't show that to you. I was scaling the buttercream ingredients. So that's beautiful, tall cake. To get a cake this size out of a cake mix, you'd probably have to use 2 cake mixes at whatever, $2 or $3, $4. I don't even know how much cake mix is, $4 each. And we made this with 180 grams of flour, which is worth about 18 cents. 5 eggs, which is worth about $1.50 maybe, and a little bit of vanilla, and so inexpensive, beautiful, delicious cake. So I'm gonna end that video there with the Genoise sponge cake. Genoise with butter, which, as I said earlier, according to some of the research Chef Cordes did, and the Genoise doesn't always have butter in it, and in modern times I think Genoise always has butter in it, so that's an interesting sort of fact. And it was a pretty inexpensive way of making a cake that would be delicious and it doesn't have any additives or preservatives, so that's nice too. Okay, so that's the end of the sponge cake, or the Genoise.